Welcome to a video from digitalized.com. This is part 3 of my Modwave secrets. In part 1 we looked at the motion sequencer, in part 2 we looked at creating rhythmic effect with samples, and in this part we're going to look at the mod processor. The mod processor is a great way of combining values from different sources and creating something really rich. So you can combine an envelope with an LFO to produce a new waveform to apply as a modulation, or you can combine velocity with where you are on the keyboard to have a different waveform or a different sample or a different wavetable. So there's so much you can do with it. So that's what we're going to dive into in this part. Right, so let's have a look at the mod processors. So the mod processors, the idea behind them is they can do different functions, but they can manipulate values and parameters coming into the synth and then change it to something else. So it could be, you could use the keynote number to switch between different samples, or you could use the mod wheel to switch wavetables or things like that, or you can combine values of some oscillators, and there's loads of different things you can do with it. So let's have a look at some of those. So we've got these different types. We've got gate, offset, quantize, scale, curve, smooth, and sum. Let's have a look at gate first. I've just quickly set this one up, the gate. So the idea with the gate is it checks a value. When that value comes in, if it's below the threshold, it does one value. If it's above, it does another. That's as a fixed value. I'll show you the way in a sec. So what I've done here is I've got the mod wheel hooked up. So when the mod wheel's over 26%, it will do the value of -82, and when it's below it, it will do the minus of 100. So it's down at the bottom now, and I'm here. I've got the mod process set to 100 on this. So where it's low, the mod wheel, it's below 26 as I'm controlling it now. It's sending the values 100 to the volume of the sub oscillator. When I get above 26%, it stops. And you see, in fact, if I turn the other oscillators down, you see there's nothing comes through, go below, and it brings that in and out. And so when it's on fixed value, you can say when it's below the threshold, so it's below 51%, it will send this value. Which value do I want it to send? I could send an LFO 1. So let's choose LFO 1. So it's below, it's going to send 100, and when it's above 50%, it's going to send LFO 1. So there you go. Now I could change that to say I want it to be LFO 2 when it's below the amount, and just so we can hear the difference, I'll set LFO 2 really fast. So there we are, we're using, if it's below 50%, we're using LFO 2, and above we're using LFO 1. So that's useful for creating effect. You don't want necessarily the LFO to control the speed, you just want it to be switched in and on. That's where the gate is really useful, and you can use it for other things. Like, let's go back to that. Let's say I want it to be the controller, and I want it to be the note number. So now I've set those up. So when I'm high up on the keyboard, and then I get to just we're on E. I can show you on there. It stops now because we've told it below that threshold to send 0, -100, so nothing, and above that to send the value. If I flick those round, we only get the sub oscillator in the lower part of the keyboard now. So now we can combine that. So in my right hand I've got the pad, and in the left hand I've got the pad and the sub oscillator, which is really handy because sometimes you don't want the sub going all the way up to the top, so you can create splits. So you could use that So instead of controlling that volume, we could control layer 1, and we could also use it to control layer 2 but as a negative. And then to make things easier for you to hear, I'll choose so now we've got a split. So that's using 2 split points. There are other ways of doing this, by the way. You could use the key tracking and the key zones as well, but I'm just going to stick with the mod process 2. You've got 2 of these mod processors as well, so you can use them for different things. So that's one great example. So that's the gate. So offset, you can use, so here I'm taking the value of the mod controller, and so we've still got that same idea. So I've got the mod controller running there, and as I increase that, you can hear it because we've got these setters plus 100 and minus 100. So the mod wheel is controlling the volume of the 2 oscillators, offset because they're reversed. But you can then say, I actually want a bass of 20, and then the value of the mod wheel. So you set, or you could say I want actually them to be at 50, and the mod wheel just do the last 50%. And you can also say I actually want the mod wheel to over a whole scale of 200. Like that. It's a technique I used on a B3 Hammond. So here's a B3. I've got oscillator 1 is slow Leslie, oscillator 2 is medium slow Leslie, oscillator 3 is medium fast, and then we've got fast. And then the mod wheel will control all 4 of those layers. And that was achieved by using an offset. So for layer 1, the offset is at 0, so it is at 200%, so the mod wheel controls the first 50%, and layer B, its offset is down, so it controls the top part of it. Quantize is an interesting one. Let me flick back to my test example. So Quantize actually reduces the number of steps, so if it was, instead of it being totally smooth, here we can say I've got 3 steps. So we use the mod wheel as the input source. See it steps up like that in those steps. I'll turn these down so you can hear it. If I increase the number of steps, you can see it starts to smooth it around. So that's really handy if you create some interesting digital effects on there. For example, if I went with a DW8000 type wave, and we don't need that on there, we want that generator to be mod 1. Let's put the volume up on it. So let's set that position to be mod process 1. You can see those, it's on those steps. If I reduce the steps down, so there you go. So that's quantize. Scaling, basically you're modifying the scale. So there's our mod wheel controlling the position, but we can actually modify the values from the mod wheel with something else. So I don't know, let's pick an LFO. And we can just make that amount a bit subtler. So down at the bottom, as we increase it, you can see the LFO is actually actively modifying the mod wheel output. So it's actually quite a useful effect. So rather than just applying the LFO to it, you can apply LFO and a curve just smooths that out. So as I move that mod wheel up, even if I move it as fast as I can, it doesn't move it as a square anymore, it's curving that off. So you can see I'm just smoothing that curve, and there's a couple of different rates for it as well. And then we've got a smooth one is actually a lag processor. You see these on some analog synths. So for this one, if I set this attack quite high, if I shove that mod wheel right to the top, you can actually it's not like the curved one where the other was just curving it off. This has actually got that lag on it. So if I show you on here, there you can see my mod wheel. So if I hold the note, hit the mod wheel straight up to 100%, you can see it slowly rises up. If I move it down, it comes straight down. But I can delay that as well. So that's a really useful effect, that. So your left hand, you can just flick up the mod wheel. So it's quite a nice effect, that one. Found that one really useful. So the next one is sum, and for that we can sum values together. So here I've got the mod wheel summed up with the LFO. So before we had the LFO and the Modwave actually being used to scale, to kind of as a scale effect. This time we're just adding them together. So even though the mod wheel is down at 0, you can hear the LFO, and as I move the mod wheel up, you can see that curve changing on the mod processor there. So it's a way, and you can control those amounts. So it's a different way of processing to that we used before, but it's very handy when you want to combine some values. So you could combine aftertouch with mod wheel, or you could combine velocity with a wave sequence or something like that. So you can build these up together. So those are mod processors. They're really powerful. When you've not used them, they're a bit daunting, but when you're doing your sound design, you think, I'm stuck, I really need to do something. I really need to try and achieve this volume cutoff. Then you think, mod processor, that's the way of doing it. And there's different ways of doing the exact same thing as well. So you've got 2 mod processors per layer, so that's 4 across the top, and that's how you can create some complex sounds with it as well. So those are my couple of little secrets. There are plenty more, and I'll probably do a separate video with some more on. But the 2 things are master the sequencer and master the mod processor, and you can do virtually anything with the Modwave, which is why I find it such an interesting and inspiring synth to use, because anything you can think of, you can almost create on there. So thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you do like it. I'll see you on the next one. Please leave a comment, let me know your tips for the Modwave. What are the best things I should be sharing, and what you want me to look more into as well. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.